Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the Gaithersburg Book Festival, but you know that you're already there. Again, my name is Susan Hoffman, and I am so delighted to be here introducing this wonderful author. We're pleased to bring you this fabulous festival, thanks in part to the generous support of our sponsors, including our title sponsor, the Carnegie at Washingtonian Center, and all of our volunteers. When you see them, please join us in expressing your appreciation. I have a few housekeeping announcements. One is please silence your devices. We'll try to silence that tent, but we'll see what we can do there. Please silence your devices. You may think they're silenced, and then sometimes it goes off, so double check. Your feedback's really important. You can go to the Gaithersburg Book Festival on Facebook and Twitter. Jeffery Deaver, who is going to be speaking now, our author, will be signing books immediately after this presentation. Copies of his book are on sale in the Politics and Prose store in the Activity Center. So I told my daughter I was going to be introducing Jeffery Deaver, and she went, oh! So I was very excited too. Jeffery Deaver, as you all know, is an international #1 best-selling author. His novels have appeared on bestseller lists around the world. His books are sold in 150 countries and translated into 25 languages. He has served 2 terms as president of the Mystery Writers of America and was recently named a Grand Master of the Mystery Writers of America, whose ranks include Agatha Christie, Ellery Queen, Mary Higgins Clark, and Walter Mosley. Good company. The author of 50 novels, 100 short stories, and a nonfiction law book, we'll hear about that, and a lyricist of a country western album, Jeffery Deaver has received or been shortlisted for dozens of awards. His Bodies Left Behind was named Novel of the Year by the International Thriller Writers Association. His Lincoln Rhyme thriller, The Broken Window, and A Standalone Edge were also nominated for that prize. The Garden of Beasts won the Steel Dagger from the Crime Writers Association in England, and he has won the short story Dagger from CWA, Crime Writers of America, and another story was shortlisted for the award. Jeffery Deaver has been honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Boucher-Con World. Is that right?
That's right, Boucher-Con. But that's,
yeah, I wasn't sure if there was a soft C. Boucher-Con World Mystery Convention, the Strand Magazine's Lifetime Achievement Award, and the Raymond Chandler Lifetime Achievement Award in Italy. I'll cut to the more modern chase. The Never Game, featuring his character Colter Shaw, and titled Tracker, was the #1 television show in America in its first season. I'm sure you all watch Tracker. Today, Jeffery Deaver will be presenting South of Nowhere, his newest Colter Shaw novel. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Bort Yacovissi, who will lead the interview of Jeffery Deaver.
well, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Jenny, and thanks for everyone coming out today. You guys are the best.
And we have wonderful weather, and so this is as good as it gets. So Jeff and I have been chatting over the last day and a half, and so I'm going to be asking him questions that he has already answered like 3 or 4 times in my hearing. So the first thing I wanted to ask was, so how did you get started in writing? You have a long, storied resume.
Sure, and I won't make it. Just to warn you, I talk a lot longer and more disjointedly, if that can be an adverb, than I write. So don't let today deter you.
He's a tight plotter, but a long storyteller.
Oh, well said. Thank you. You know, on the books, you see the little blurbs at the bottom, you know, the best book ever written or whatever. I want to put that on my next book, Jenny. Thank you. How did I get started? I got started because I was a nerd when I was growing up. But I was a nerd when the word nerd meant something. It was real. You know, nowadays, if you're a nerd, you live in Silicon Valley, you have $1 billion, you're an accelerationist and want to end civilization, and you've invented an app that does deep fakes of cat faces, as if you need a deep fake of a cat face. And but no, I was a real nerd, a Leave It to Beaver nerd. I was pudgy, clumsy, socially inept. I had no talent for sports. Oh, I said that once, Leave It to Beaver nerd. And this young girl came up to me afterwards and said, Mr. Deaver, Justin Bieber is not a nerd. So, but
Cultural references. It's horrible.
I was just that. I was ignored by cheerleaders and pom-pom girls, and there was some reason for it because I was inept, totally inept at sports. They would put me out in right field. This is intramural. This is not varsity. I would go out into right field where, by the way, you can do the least damage. So if any of you are put out in right field on the softball team, there's a message behind it. But I would be sitting there staring at the clouds. Oh, that cloud looks like that looks like a getaway car. I'm going to write a story about that. And I'm talking like 11 or 12 or whatever. And I would compose poems. And I don't know if I can remember it, but I'm going to try. They go something like this. The score is tied, 3 boys on base. I see the batter's happy face as he grips that bat and looks my way. All I can do is hope and pray that he'll display an ounce of pity and won't hit that ball to me. But we all know how it goes. He whacks that ball and it breaks my nose. So obviously I was drawn to, thank you. I was drawn to reading and writing, but because I had no interest or talent in sports. But I had something better. I had the Glen Ellen, Illinois Public Library. And there I learned about books. And I learned several things. One, they could, take us away from our daily cares, like being ignored by cheerleaders and pom-pom girls. We could get lost in a story. And they would teach us about the world. The days before Wikipedia and Google, and they did something else. Do you remember when you may have been the new kid on the schoolyard, or it was your school and a new kid showed up? And of course, children are mortified. They're terribly shy. And the poor child, you, for instance, didn't know what to say or do. But then somebody looked over at you and saw you were holding something. And it was a book. And they came up and said, I'm talking 9, 10 years old, 11 years old. They said, oh, Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie. Say, did you read that part where Ma was talking to the kids? Or it was a copy of The Hobbit. And the kid would say, wow, did you see that dragon in chapter 4? And even though you didn't know that kid from Adam or Eve, you know what? Yes, you did, because of books. Books brought you together. And that's when I knew I wanted to be a writer at that young age. And I tried my hand at it, but they were terrible. I wrote my first novel at 12, 3 chapters, but it was a book to me because they had chapters, and I wrote the end at the end. And I did the cover art myself, and it was terrible. And you may have heard that when an author has some degree of success, the publishers look for something in the past to republish. No, sadly, that story met a fate it deserved, and will never see the light of day. But I will get back to you, Jenny. Don't worry. Just very quickly.
Hey, you keep going. That's okay, good. It's all good.
Very quickly. I knew I wanted to be a writer, but there are no prodigy writers. Mozart was composing at 4. And Jackson Pollock was presumably spilling paint on his mother's floor at 3 or whatever. Writers have to live. They have to experience things. So I put that writing fiction, which I wanted to write, commercial fiction, like what I read. James Bond, Dashiell Hammett, speaking of which, and other authors, Raymond Chandler. And put that on hold. I was a folk singer for a time, singer-songwriter. I was a journalist. And I went to law school, was an attorney for a while. And finally, in my always kind of writing, playing around with it, planning, reading books I loved, tearing the books I loved apart, not literally, outlining them and writing notes and so forth. And finally, in my early 30s, I thought it was time. I published my first book and then quit my job finally after about 6 books. And I've been doing this full time for about 40 years.
Yeah. And so just to put this in context, like the Lincoln Rhyme series, which I'm sure everybody is very familiar with, there are 16 Lincoln Rhyme books to date, and it is a series that has lasted for 26 years. So that's some serious staying power, right? So, exactly. So one thing that I was really surprised to sort of realize when I was looking at this is that you overlap series. So Colter Shaw came to be while Lincoln Rhyme is still out there. And so so how did Colter Shaw as a character start to form in your head? How did he become the character that he is as you have been living with Lincoln Rhyme for 26 years?
Sure. A great question, Jenny. Thank you. I just have to keep boosting you guys up because, we do this for you. I get to make up stuff for a living. I get paid for it. Does it get any better than that? But how does that happen? Because of you. All the novels that Susan told you about, 50 novels, over 100 short stories. I wake up every morning, this morning, for instance, often panicked that I'm going to screw up, that my book is going to be too complicated, not complicated enough, too many plots, not enough plots, too suspenseful, not suspenseful enough. And that is such a responsibility, I feel, that I'm always thinking about, will this be good for you? I tell my students, you don't write for yourself. For heaven's sakes, get over it, If you want to write about penguins that take hot air balloons down from Mars and put on Sherlock Holmes hats and solve crimes with a town librarian, well, fine. And I hope all 8 people in the world who read that are going to enjoy it. But our job is to entertain as many people as we can. Books are we'll talk about this a little bit more, but books are so special. So I always think about you guys. Now, how does that translate? Everybody loves Lincoln Rhyme. There are Lincoln Rhyme fan clubs around the world. It's not me. They don't care. If they want me to come talk in Albania, not Albanian, but Albania, about Lincoln Rhyme, that's fine, but they don't really need me. They get together and talk about the latest book. It's like big book clubs. Well, that is very important. I will continue to write Lincoln Rhyme books. In fact, there's one back at my hotel room, computer open, giving me this devious plot issue I'm having trouble with. Will get solved. Don't worry. When you read it next year, it will read like lightning. But I'm going to do Lincoln Rhyme. But there are some stories that you may not like. And that could have to do with technical, forensic, police, procedural writing. Now, that's Lincoln Rhyme. He's a forensic scientist. The CSI kind of stuff. Everybody loves that. And they also love Lincoln Rhyme because he's a curmudgeon and he's got a brilliant mind, and we love him. But he is, if you may not know, and I'm talking like everybody knows who, you may just have walked past here and said, "Oh, damn, it's not Pavone." Well, I'll listen anyway. But I thought, well, you may not like a character who is somewhat sedentary and everything happens within his mind. Well, what's the antithesis of that? A character like the character I loved when I was growing up, Shane. Now, some of you are not going to know who that character is, but it was I would call it an archetypal Western from the 1950s. Alan Ladd Jr. starred in it, and he's the gunslinger who comes to town. And he's a gunslinger. He's not a good guy, but guess what? He supports the good causes. He fights the bad cattle baron, the oil baron, the Silicon Valley billionaire who wants to destroy American society through accelerationism. Oh no, that wasn't Alan Ladd Jr. I'm sorry, I got carried away. But we like that character. Somebody goes on a quest. The Lord of the Rings, there were 4 of them, but it's still kind of they came to a town like strangers coming to town. And Clint Eastwood, the man with no name, a few dollars more, a fistful of dollars, a few dollars more. I love those characters, and I thought that's what I want to create. But I didn't want to write a Western. I didn't want like a period piece. I wanted a modern day Shane, or man with no name. And then I was aware of a reward. I was just reading the newspaper, and if anybody here has a little free time, and wants $25 million. Go to the Middle East and track down a terrorist that the U.S. State Department has put that price on his head. Now, they don't want you to catch him. Don't do that. And definitely don't say, I told you to do that, just for the record. But they want information leading to his arrest. And I thought, well, I've never seen a book about a fellow who goes after rewards. And so I came up with the idea, and that became the Never Game, which then became the Tracker TV show, #1 show. And as Susan was saying, yes, the first season, #1. We're in 3 seasons now. #1 TV show in America. #1 network TV show in America. Beats everything, fiction, nonfiction, news. In the whole scheme of things, there's, Nielsen considers Netflix as well, Amazon Prime, and so forth. It's third presently to the Squid Game. Go figure. Bunch of people killing themselves. Not my cup of tea, but there you have it. And on a serious note, a movie, a 4-part series, Adolescence, which is heartbreaking, breathtaking, one of the best things I've ever seen on TV. And it deserves, frankly, to be #1. But there we have it. Then Tracker is #3. So that's then after the Never Game, there was the other books. Yes, Goodbye Man, Final Twist.
Final
Jenny
Twist.
knows more than I know. Hunting Time. Thank you. And now this one. Yeah, that's right. The one with the blue cover on it. Thank you. So there's a relatively compact answer for me, Jenny.
But it took you a while to sort of have him formulate in your mind before you were able to put him on the page.
Yes,
right?
I spend about 8 months outlining each book. My theory is that you don't get on an airplane that hasn't been built according to a schematic diagram ahead of time. The test pilot doesn't get in the plane and say, shouldn't the engines be on the bottom? I mean, where are the controls? In the restroom? No. Everything's planned out ahead of time so that when, the test pilot gets on the plane, she says, okay, turns on the switch, the plane flies, checking stuff out, but there's no danger. Why should a book be any different? I plan it out ahead of time. Now, in fairness, nothing is more subjective than writing. And I know there are authors here that just sit down and are pantsers. You know that phrase, seat of the pants? They just start writing. If it works for you, it works. But I generally feel, and I tell my students, that if you have not written before, you need to know where you're going. Joyce Carol Oates, the wonderful writer, she can write anything. She said, you can't write your first sentence until you know what your last sentence is. And that's absolutely true. And you don't need to do what I do. I'm obsessive. I outline more than anybody else. And you don't really need to do that. But remember, my books take place over a day and a half or 2 days. There are 3 plots. They all intersect. I taught a course at Virginia Tech. And I was kind of playing with the students. And I said, well, what do you think my influences are? And I had an answer in the back of my head. I knew they weren't going to get it. And they said, oh, Dashiell Hammett, maybe. Or James Bond. Or Raymond Chandler, crime writer like that. And one girl looked at me and said, Seinfeld. That was the answer. Why? Because there are 4 subplots going on. They intersect. There are reprehensible characters in it, and they happen to be the main characters. That's true. And every conflict, everything is resolved at the end. And so you just absolutely need to outline. And can I just spend like 3 minutes talking about
please.
the importance of outlining?
Yeah.
When you outline, there are so many advantages. I could lecture you for a long time, but I won't. You can write the book in any order, for instance. You've done your outline, okay, and you look at it. I've got to kill somebody today. I don't feel like it. We all have those days, right? Some of you just had no response. Okay, maybe you want to kill somebody every day.
Every day.
I'll tell you. No, I'll tell you when I want to kill people. Now I'm a writer, correct? Now what's the #1 thing we writers enjoy? Excuses not to write. And what's the #1 excuse not to write? The internet, more specifically YouTube, and more specifically yet, videos of baby goats in pajamas. I could watch those guys for hours. They are so cute. They jump all over each other and they run to the camera and they lick the camera. Oh, it's so cute. You have to look them up. I mean, you really have to. Well, not now.
Just not while you're
I'm talking. I'm talking. So, okay, later, after I'm finished, please. But so I put on the internet, excuse not to write. No, the internet is down. Oh, no, what am I going to do? Where are my baby goats? So I call, I'm not going to mention DirecTV by name. And I call them up and I say, my internet's down. What am I going to do? Don't worry, we'll have a repairman out there tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Well, I grumble a little bit about that, but anything to excuse not to write in my baby goats. And, okay, 8 o'clock. Oh, yeah, comes and goes. No, repairman. 9 o'clock, you can see where this is going. 4 o'clock, the repairman walks in and looks down and says, oh, that's a KB42 router. I can't work on that. Those are the days when I want to kill somebody. And guess what the new violent torture death of a repairman is and what unnamed DirecTV company he works for. In outline, let's me jump back and forth and write things like that. And I'll say one other thing about outlining, then I'll change the subject. Well, I'll go back to you to change the subject. Have you ever read a book that should not have been written?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You know how that happens sometimes? Oh, I'm guilty of not only reading a book that should not have been written, I'm guilty of writing a book that should not have been written in my early days. And I'll tell you how that comes about. Let's say you come up with a brilliant set piece beginning. You know, a set piece is like a car chase or a bank robbery or it doesn't have to be violent. It could be a scene between a husband and wife, a parent and a child, in which there's a big conflict and the child runs off. That's a set piece. It really sets the tone. It's called an inciting incident. And you come up with this idea. Wow, this is great. You sit down and you start to write, and that chapter writes itself. It goes so fast. You're not going to stop. Chapter 2, bang, you write that chapter. Chapter 3, you write that chapter. Chapter 4, well, you write it, but it's a little slower. Chapter 5, a little slower. Yeah, chapter 6 is the brick wall. You don't know where on earth you're going. And so you stare at that for a while, and great set piece, but you don't know what's going to happen. All you see is what we call the dreaded middle, that you can only fill with cliches, and beyond that, you have no ending. You don't know who the villain is. There has to be a twist. Every book needs a twist, but you don't have a twist. All you can see is what we call a deus ex machina ending. And deus ex machina, that was from the Greek drama, when the playwright couldn't figure out how to save the hero at the end. This is true. A stagehand would wheel down a chariot from the gods. The hero would get in and would be cranked up to safety. It's Deus ex machina. It's actually Greek for I don't know how to end this friggin' book. And so you're confronted with this 200 pages of well done prose, and I guarantee anybody in here, if you know what you want to write, you can write great prose. I guarantee it. But you don't know where it's going to go. So you've got these 200 pages. What are you going to do? You have two choices. One, and you're going to kind of get my take on this, is the morally reprehensible, irresponsible, dead wrong, intellectually dishonest thing, and put that book out in the stream of commerce with the dreaded middle and the Deus Ex Machina ending, doing a disservice to all of you who are our gods. Or you can do, you're going to get this take, the intellectually honest, uplifting, upright, courageous thing, and throw it out. Every single word. Even that set piece beginning. Because if you can write a good set piece beginning for a bad book, think of the set piece beginning you'll write for a good book. Now, both of those are really, really difficult to do, and I've done both. But what if you were outlining? What if you put that set piece on a little Post-it note up on the upper left-hand corner of your bulletin board and threw in some Post-it notes, body here, they solved the crime here. Oh, no, dreaded middle. Deus Ex Machina ending. I don't know who the villain is. A set piece. So what? You wad up 5 cents of Post-it notes. You have wasted, 5-6 days of your life? You get back to writing a book that should be written.
And so, like, especially with the Colter Shaw novels, you have both the subplots that are within the larger overall plot, and then you also have plot, a storyline, a story arc that goes across multiple books.
Right.
Right. And so how do you get all those pieces working all together, and how far in advance do you understand what that larger story arc looks like?
Sure. The story arc in the Colter Shaw books, which if any of you have seen Tracker, is echoed. Now the books are very different, and we can talk a little bit about the translation of book to screen in a moment.
We're going to get
if
to
you'd like.
that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I knew you were good, Jim.
Yeah.
But the Colter Shaw books, echoed again in the Tracker show, have a what I call the soap opera subplot. All of my books have three plots. One is the core crime. In my book, the Broken Window, it was about a serial killer who worked for a data mining company, and he got every bit of information about you. He could become your cousin that you met at a wedding after a few drinks, and then talks himself into your apartment to pick up the pictures that you had for the cousin. And that was the core plot. Then there's the soap opera element in the Colter Shaw books. That's about his family. In the Lincoln Rhyme books, it's about will he have surgery to maybe improve his quadriplegic condition. And then there's a geopolitical issue. And that's the broader thing. And that, for instance, in The Broken Window, could be about the dangers of data mining. In the book South of Nowhere, it's about a serious snow melt that imperils a small town in Northern California. And, I don't care whether you think global warming comes because there's a secret herd of dinosaurs living under the Earth's crust after the asteroid a billion years ago, and they're farting, and this is causing Earth's warming, or, carbon emissions. I'll tell you what I vote for. I don't care what you want, but as Chris Pavoni was saying, I don't get on my soapbox, but I simply indicate that there are issues that are important. Each one of those issues has a twist at the end. They intersect because I write in third person because I like my twists and turns, and it's much easier. I respect David so much because to create twists and turns in first person, it takes an astonishing amount of skill. But they all come together at the end, and they are just, I hope you guys are so smart. It's really irritating. I'm sorry if I can kvetch a little bit. So at least I hope one of my surprises gets you.
So I will say that of the 5 Colter Shaw books, the 2 that I liked the most are the ones that involve the other members of his family.
The family stuff.
Yeah, and truly, South of Nowhere is a little bit different. I think it has a different feel than the other 4, and it features both his mother and his sister, which are lovely. So how did you come into it thinking I'm going to do something a little bit different than the other ones?
Yeah, again, and each book is kind of predestined in a way because I have an arc. And by the way, just for the record, I never kill off my main characters. Absolutely never going to happen. Why? Because many people depend on me and the income. MasterCard, Visa, the bank that holds the mortgage on my house. I have to support them, of course. But also, why? This is about you. It should be a fun experience. I never hurt a child, never hurt an animal. I'm going to be delicate here, but there's no violence involving, let's say, adult situations, because we don't like to read about that. They're real. We have to be aware of that, but that's not what you pick up my book for, at least. I want you to end it with a smile, maybe a shiver of excitement, or sometimes a tear, but a tear because, there is loss in life, but it's a loss that's kind of organic, but it will never be the main character.
Okay. And so talking about the going from the page to the screen, you are the producer on Tracker, or you are a producer on Tracker, and you told a story last night about what that means to be the producer.
Yeah. I told my 13-year-old that I am a producer on the show, and it's appropriate for kids to watch. If you've seen it, there's some violence in it, no real adult situations, but it's network TV. The violence is kind of off camera, and it's not gross. And so she said, "Oh, you're a producer, and what does that mean?" And I said, "It means I'm a Hollywood mogul." And she said, "Oh, okay, no." And I said, "Well, what it means is because I'm a producer, I get like $1 extra per episode, and maybe a little more than that, but enough to buy a half dozen eggs or something." Well, not nowadays. No, I'm sorry, I forgot. Inflation is all gone. Okay, we're not going to go there. But anyway, so then she was with some friends and said, "Oh yeah, you know what he is? He's a Hollywood mongrel," and.
And there you have it. And you had said last night that you really don't watch the show.
No, I mean I have seen some episodes, but what I do is I write 8-9 hours a day. I love it. I think Chris and David were talking about that too. They do it because they love it, and I just am thrilled. I do at least a book a year. I also co-write with Isabella Maldonado, if you know her writing, and now I know David was writing with James Patterson. It's a little different for us. Isabella and I are co-authors, co-partners, and we come up with the idea together. We outline together and write the book together. That's been a lot of fun. And so we have one out now called Fatal Intrusion. The new one comes out in September called The Grave Artist, a children's book, clearly, and. I'm working on the next Lincoln Rye book. The next Colter Shaw book is in the offing. And then I should say, too, I write for Amazon. I do original short stories. I love short fiction. And you can go to Kindle. Right now they're on Kindle only, but they will, in fact, some are now available in print. But I have to tell you just a fast story. Amazon, if I can sit on my rear end and write and then pick up packages, not have to go to a store, except bookstores. Always go to independent bookstores. Politics and Prose, thank you very much, of course. But I get so much stuff. And so Amazon package comes, I open it up, and it's a lucite cube about this big. And, couple glasses of wine, I'm on Amazon. I think, I haven't ordered a lucite cube for a while. Who knows when that's going to come in handy? So I order it, then I turn it over, and it's an award. And from Amazon Publishing, and it said, "Congratulations on the 250,000th download of your latest short story collection, the Broken Doll." The Broken Doll. And so I thought, wow, that's great. I didn't really think about it. I wrote it, out it went, and people love the short fiction. So that's what I do too. So that keeps me pretty busy. So maybe jump to questions now. Do you think I know? I haven't gone to.
She's going to tell us when it's time for us to jump
good,
to
okay.
questions.
I forgot the timing. I forgot the timing rule.
We're
I'm
keeping
sorry.
an eye.
I need help. So,
yeah. So one of the things that I told Jeff yesterday is that I actually specifically subscribed to Hulu so that I could binge watch season 1 of Tracker, and that I have notes for the writers. Actually, Ken Olin is the director of those. Yeah,
I know you all walked in and said, "Oh, it's Justin Hartley. Cool."
So Ken Olin, if people remember, 30-something way back in the day.
This Is Us and Alias.
Anyway, so it's interesting how it made me think about how the translation from book to the TV screen and how nuance is lost. So you don't have time, and you can't trust your audience to pay close enough attention to have nuance. And so the characters are broader. And anyway, I like the books better. Okay, just FYI. But like one thing I thought was, okay, I guess because Colter is relatively stoic. Right, he's kind of laconic. He doesn't say much necessarily, and one of his rules, his father was the man with never
king
whatever
of the never rules,
the never rule guy, but one of Colter's rules is never banter.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of banter.
That's the I think of the who doesn't love a good thriller movie, but it's all about emotional engagement. It's that you have to feel connected with the story. It's got to touch your heart. And when there's a scene in like I can't. It was maybe one of the Lethal Weapon movies. The bad guys fighting with either was it Mel Gibson or Danny Glover? I can't remember. And always there. Guess what? The bad guy loses. Oh, that was a surprise. But they happen to be at a very conveniently placed construction site. And let's say Danny Glover grabs one of these nail guns, and you may have seen him, and he shot the guy. And then Mel Gibson says, "You all right?" He said, "Yeah, I nailed him." Well, all right, let's step back a minute. A life was just lost. He was the villain, but he may have been a father. He may have had a partner. We know he had a mother and father. And yet that kind of, it's not like that in Tracker. There's, we don't really see quite so much quipping. But I think that detracts from the emotional engagement in a story. And, you've got to be, there has to be an electric wire between you and the story. And so you have to feel every single word on that page. Oh, and if I may give just one little bit of advice, because I can't stop myself. I teach a whole course in writing. I was going to talk about the process of revising, which is very important. I do, I rewrite probably 40 times. The first third on the computer, because you can rearrange, whole chapters if you need to. With the outline, I usually don't need to do that, but I may need to rename a character. And then I print it out, because we experience a book very differently on the printed page than we do on the screen. And you will read a paragraph on a piece of paper that you've looked at 100 times. And it's, oh my God, you see mistakes, you see errors and things like that. But then you have to listen to the book. I know it's probably the last thing you want to do, listen to something you've written 100,000 words, but you have to do it, because the sound of words matter, as we were talking about earlier. And, novels are very new in the scheme of things. Entertainment and cultural experience of various forms of art in the performing world were all oral. There were epic plays and theater. There's no Shakespeare novel. You don't read King Lear in novel form. That only came about in the last few hundred years. So words should be about sound as well as about the substance. And so that's why I read the book to myself, or have Word read it to me. There are other programs that do that. I would strongly recommend that.
Do you read your own out loud?
You mean in audiobooks?
No. When you're doing that, do you read?
Oh, do I read?
Out
No,
loud?
I follow word for word. Yeah,
Oh,
and it's very convenient, because Word highlights the particular word, and you can just use the word commands and delete it or change it or whatever.
Huh. Because to me, listening to yourself read, you get the rhythm, you feel the rhythm, you can see what doesn't sound right, things like that.
Yeah, but Jenny, you don't understand. I hate the sound of my own voice.
And so one thing is that I noticed that I learned something fascinating and new with every book that I read. So, for example, I now know how to survive an avalanche. And it was the final twist. Yeah. We learned that you swim with an avalanche. You swim first, and then when you stop moving, you make sure to clear your face so that you have breathing room. And then you make a little snowball to figure out which way it falls, so you know which way is up. So these are just the cute little tidbits that you find in all the Colter Shaw novels. So
probably doesn't happen here much, but just in case. And although there is something that might come in handy, because if you're ever, and this is in South of Nowhere, and I guarantee this is gonna sell the book right now. If you're ever in a situation where you believe you're near an IED, and that's a police term for improvised explosive device, like a booby trap bomb, make sure you have some honeybees with you. And I'll say no more. And if that doesn't sell the book, like I say, I don't know what does. So.
It's true. It's absolutely a fascinating way to learn things. As a matter of fact, I gave a little tutorial to somebody who was having trouble at school, somebody who was trying to, get in a fight with them. And I said, you go in low, you grab them around the thighs, and you stand up. And that puts them on their back. And then it's done. It's over. And I learned that from...
I hope you weren't in a situation where that
hunting
happened.
time. I learned that in hunting
okay.
time.
All right.
So anyway, okay, we are ready for your questions. So I understand that. Are we asking people to come to the microphone, or do we?
I think we have one.
We're gonna take. So all you need to do is raise your hand.
And just remember that you probably gathered I teach courses in writing, and I love to call on my students. So maybe if there's a brave soul out there who can get the ball started, I won't have to pick somebody out of the audience and
we have a
berate
hand
them.
up right back here.
Oh, we're saved. There's
Excellent.
someone back there.
Excellent, right back there.
She's saved yourselves.
Hi. I have a lot of questions actually, but yeah, I was wondering if you could share some of the backstory with Renee and Colter and let us know like when we should expect on Tracker for them to realize that they're in love with each other.
Sure. Well, you all heard the question. The risk. Well, let me put it this way. What are these books all about, right? The books are the TV shows. It's all about conflict. It's all about tension. And I figured finally, after I think 15 Lincoln Rhyme and Amelia Sachs books, it was time to tie the knot. I mean, I'm sorry. Readers were getting a little irritated. And I actually had readers, it's a modern day 2025, if I'm not mistaken. Lincoln and Amelia were living together. Well, it's not a big deal nowadays. Oh, it is to some readers. So, I can't make any readers upset. Nobody's going to be upset that they get married. They got married. But as far as the Tracker show goes, pretty early in their relationship, we got to keep that tension going. Will somebody else show up from Colter's past?
Because he already did have somebody show up, the other bounty hunter.
Yeah,
right?
And so that may happen. So I do have an answer to your question. Stay tuned. Thank you, though. That was a great question. Thanks for your support of the show. I like it.
All right, we have a couple.
Gentleman back there, please. Yes, I promised I'd answer his question. So.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions too, but I'll go with one.
Thank you.
The book and the TV series are two different. Everything.
Absolutely.
There is nothing related, as far as I'm concerned, other than the name, Colter Shaw. Anyways, in the book, there is so much real information about they used to be called survivalists.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How do you get that information?
Sure, and thank you for the question. Thanks for your support, as we were talking a little bit earlier. I appreciate that. It's my job again to give you the best experience I can. Part of that, I write very fast plots. I try to create characters that are rich, and I call them living, breathing characters. But there's also that other third element of a Deaver book, and that's this bit of information. The book, The Broken Window, was about data mining. The Burning Wire was about the grid. This book is about climate change and snow melt and flooding, and that's what readers love. The survivalist stuff. I'm not a survivalist. Colter Shaw climbs rocks. I'm sorry. Gravity is non-negotiable. I'm not going to do that. But readers love that. So I spent I don't know how long researching the book. I talked to some law enforcement officers who have experience with the dark side of survivalists, because some of them are separatists, and they are like anti-American, which is just utterly inexcusable, but they exist. And so I had to make sure that was realistic. Although I do have to tell you something. I wanted to. This Colter Shaw does repel, and I thought, I need to try this, but people repel off. Probably some of you have done it here. You repel or you bungee jump or whatever and I'm not going to do that. But I bought all the equipment, Amazon, you can buy anything, of course, and I rigged it to my back porch, which was 4 feet off the ground. And I don't know if you've seen it, and you stand this way, usually with like 100-foot abyss behind you, and you kind of go like this. And I am so glad there was no video, because I start off and my feet slipped and I ended up hanging upside down. Now, all it took was like my rolling over, but I thought, that's the last survival I'm doing. I would do the honeybees. I'll tell you, if there's an IED, nobody can run faster than I can. So thank you for the question and support. Can we do one or two more? Maybe?
Yeah, I saw some other hands go up.
Sure.
One way over there.
Okay.
Oh, yes,
I
please.
don't know whether I can get. Yeah.
I can repeat the question if I can hear it.
I think I have a soccer mom's voice.
Oh, there you go.
Hi. I
Hi.
started a book called, I'm not a book, but a book club called Read It Before You See It. So I've never seen any of the trackers. My daughter introduced me to Tracker, and so it's on my binge list. So my question to you is, are we going to see like a takeoff for Mary Dove or Dory?
Oh, Mary Dove is Colter's mother, and Dory is his sister, and they figure a bit more prominently in this book. I'm not going to
Yes.
tell you anything more. Well, I'll tell you. I will give something away very quickly. There's this levee is about to collapse, and the imperiling an entire town, and there's a lot of politics involved and things like that. So there's something kind of weird going on in town, and Colter shows up. He's going to kind of check out things, and the mayor is there. A mayor nothing like Judd, just for the record. And the mayor says, this, I won't even use the word he uses. He says, this young lady she's taken over, and she works for a disaster response company, and she's not a very nice person. She's bossing us around and telling us we have to get these alerts out, we have to move these people and evacuate these people, and my God, I can hardly deal with her. You keep your distance. Uh-oh, here she comes right now, and she walks up, and Colter turns to her and says, hey, sis, and they hug. And you can imagine the expression on the mayor. Now, there is a changing of attitude, and they all become fast friends. But then Mary Dove also appears in this book, and you do not know how fast that woman can draw her Ruger 44 Magnum pistol. And if that doesn't sell the book along with the honeybees, I don't know what will. Maybe
And-
we can take one or two more. I hope.
Just to say, I will say that I love Mary Dove and Dorian in the books much more than in the TV show. I don't find them very sympathetic
Yeah.
in the TV show.
I agree.
They are very sympathetic
Let
in
me
the
just
books.
say one fast word about the translation. Books are apples, movies are oranges. They're both in the food category, but they're entirely different. And if you ever, and I have nothing to do with it. I'm busy. I'm writing, and you have to make a movie. It's a product by committee. Imagine you have to work with people. What's the fun of that? I don't play well with others, and so I'm happy to sell it to somebody reputable like Ken Olin, or Philip Noyce, who directed The Bone Collector. Great people, and then off they go and make it. And if you ever see an author at this event, please don't tell him or her I said this, and they're saying, they took my baby, they stole my baby, that my vision was destroyed. You ask them, oh, at what point did you send the check back in protest? And you know what? They didn't, I guarantee you. So.
Do we have time for one more?
Yes.
Okay, I think I saw one other hand up. Did I not?
I think right.
Okay.
So, thinking about the movies and the books, would you ever consider doing a Lincoln Rhyme book as, say, an 8-episode, series on, say, Netflix or Amazon Prime?
Sure. If you couldn't hear the question, would I consider doing an 8-episode Lincoln Rhyme series? Well, it's interesting you say that, because one was done and it didn't do very well. It was on NBC, but they tried. They gave it the good college try, and the problem was the story, and it starred some good people, but you got to have the story, and they didn't listen. Just with all respect, Ken Olin respects my stories, and whatever else you think about where the overall direction of the stories go, those episodes are kind of like Colter Shaw. He comes in, he saves the day. He may shoot the bad guy. He gets beat up and so forth, and that's important. So, yeah, I'm always looking for other things to be done. Now, that Amazon series I mentioned, that is, I hope, going to be a TV thing. Isabella and I are trying to sell our joint book. We have 2 characters in that. We're trying to sell that. But streaming TV is the way to go now. Big crime feature films, they don't work anymore. Nobody wants them. They want superheroes, and they want, the Pixar kind of. So I love Pixar. I hate superheroes. I'm sorry, the Avengers. I'm sorry, John Steed and Mrs. Peel. Does that resonate with anybody?
Yes.
TV show in the 60s. Those are the only Avengers. Now we're up to like 87 of these guys, and you can't kill them. They just go, I'm always worried that they land and they have to go down on one knee. Don't they need knee surgery after that? Jesus. So anyway, I guess that's about it, right? Okay,
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jenny, Susan, the book festival, and readers. Thank you.